She wore white to my wedding. Not ivory, not floral. White. The kind of white meant to compete, not celebrate. She sat in the third row, legs crossed, expression neutral, holding her child like a crown. And I knew. Not just who she was, but what she meant to do. I smiled through the vows. Held Aaron's hand steady as he said, forever. His voice didn't shake. His lies were well practiced. The room held its breath for love, while I held mine for timing. Because truth, when served cold, is sharper than silence. She looked at me twice. Once during the exchange of rings, and again during the kiss. Neither glance held kindness. She didn't blink. Because some women don't need permission, they come to haunt, not to heal, but I wasn't surprised. I'd seen the text a week before. A message that wasn't for me, but landed in his inbox when he forgot to log out. He looks so much like you. And a picture of the boy, with Aaron's eyes and her smile. I didn't scream. Didn't confront. I printed the image. Ordered a DNA test discreetly. 2 cheek swabs, one lie unraveling. He never noticed the missing toothbrush. Never suspected I'd suspect him. The test arrived 3 days before the wedding. Positive. 99.98%. Aaron Miles was the biological father of a child born during our engagement. From a woman he called a mistake from the past. I didn't cry. I chose to plan. I framed the result. Tucked it inside an envelope. Sealed it with gold wax. And wrote her name on the front, Brianna. No threats. No notes. Just the data she already knew, and he prayed would stay hidden. At the altar, I kissed him like I believed. Let the cameras flash. Let the guests cheer. Let my mother tear up and whisper how proud she was. Let Aaron think he'd buried the truth. Let Brianna think I didn't know. Let the silence build. During the reception, I stood near the champagne. Watched her approach slowly. Her son tugged at her dress. She smiled like a woman who held secrets. But I held something heavier. Something legal. Something final. I'm Olivia, I said calmly. She nodded. You know, she replied. And I nodded back. I handed her the envelope. Pressed it gently into her palm. And walked away without a word. She opened it beside the wedding cake. Her face didn't change, but her posture did. She folded the paper once. Then again. And placed it in her purse like it burned. Because some truths are undeniable in print. I returned to the dance floor. Let Aaron twirl me. Let the song play. Let the night end exactly how it started, with him believing he'd gotten away with it. Until he saw her leave early. Without goodbye. Later, he asked if I noticed her. I said, of course. He waited for me to ask. To react. But I kissed his cheek instead. And whispered, she got something special from me. He smiled, thinking I meant kindness. He had no idea I meant clarity. He didn't know what was in the envelope. He wouldn't know, not until she told him. Not until he realized the wedding wasn't the highlight. It was the stage, and I had directed every moment. We met at a hospital fundraising gala. He introduced himself with a calm smile, offered to help me carry a tray of appetizers. Inside me, something hesitated, trust in motion. He wore tailored elegance and spoke softly. I was drawn to that quiet strength. He listens and builds walls around you, I thought. I didn't know they were walls around himself. Our first date was simple, coffee in the hospital courtyard. He asked about my work with sick kids. I asked about his engineering projects. We talked in circles of future we could build. He looked at my hands like he could picture home in them. And I believed him. We moved in together after 6 months. A cozy condo filled with plants and his workbooks. I painted the walls in soft neutrals. He hung my childhood drawings. We became a team, me nurturing the space, him crafting the schedule. Balance was easy when love felt mutual. But love never needs a blueprint. And ours got one. Engagement came a year later. He slid a simple sapphire ring onto my finger. He said, I choose you, with clarity. And I wanted to believe. Because I had spent my life answering every call for clarity. But I didn't know about past calls he was still answering. We began planning our wedding together. I sketched ideas in pastel notebooks. He managed the budgets and vendors. He'd negotiate seating, timeline, menus. I trusted him to handle the logistics, while I curated the ambience. It felt balanced, until it wasn't. He praised me at work events. Told colleagues how proud he was. I felt seen, celebrated. But behind closed doors, lunches became silent, dinner became routine. We swapped emotional investments for spreadsheets. And affection became transactional. We paused for my residency. He took over household chores, laundry, groceries, dinner, prep. I leaned on him, trusting his efficiency. He succeeded with distance. He created space around me, but not with me. And I missed the shifts in the air. We never fought about finances, only because I oversaw them. He deferred responsibility like it was an asset. I signed checks, consulted attorneys on our prenup. He sat at the table and listened. But didn't participate. I didn't notice it at first. His silence was hidden in meeting minutes. The prenup included all assets and investments. I drafted it with Aunt Clarice. I asked for fairness, and read through every clause. He skimmed. Signed. 3 pages. That's all he needed, or thought he needed. We moved into our married condo. The walls held both our names when visitors asked. He toasted us with champagne. I toasts to partnership. We believed in team. Until one day, I realized I was playing alone. People admired him. He was the engineer with a caring heart. And people admired me too. But admiration isn't cohesion. It's applause. And applause fades. In public, we were a pair. But we never truly synced. He maintained precision, I maintained purpose. We coexisted with grace, but drifted without noticing. And I believed forever was still a date to exchange. The first time he flinched at a baby crying, I noticed. We were at the grocery store. A toddler threw a tantrum in aisle 4. Aaron gripped the cart tighter, face stiffening. I can't stand that sound, he muttered. Not with anger, with something deeper. Fear. Shame. Memory. I brushed it off as stress. We were planning the wedding, juggling work. I didn't realize it was a trigger. For a life I didn't know he was already part of. A life that included diapers, court dates, and a woman who wore white. I didn't question his past. I assumed he'd shared it. He stopped inviting his friends over. Said it was too chaotic to host. But I never met his childhood friends. Never saw family photos. Just a few curated frames. And one locked drawer. In his study, which he said held old tax returns. He had a second phone. Work line, he explained. But I once heard it buzz at 3 a.m. He silenced it quickly. Said it was an emergency project in LA. But he never flew to LA. And I never saw a boarding pass. There were texts I wasn't supposed to see. Quick notifications from a contact named B. Just initials. One said, he's getting so big. Another, are you still coming? He deleted them fast. Faster than I could screenshot. He didn't like holding my hand in public. Said he wasn't a PDA guy. But he used to be. In our first 6 months, he'd kiss my temple mid-walk. Later, he walked slightly ahead. Creating space without words. I learned to fill it with silence. He never answered when I asked about old relationships. Just said, it ended badly. Then changed the subject. I thought it was pain. Now I know it was unfinished business. That some endings are just paused lies. And some women are left holding them. He missed the cake tasting. Said he was stuck on a site visit. But his location never moved from home. I arrived early, alone. Chose every flavor. Built our wedding dessert in solitude. He never asked what I picked. He had a recurring expense labeled, Cash App, BE. Monthly. Quiet. I asked once, he said it was for an old subscription. I didn't believe him. But I didn't confront him either. Because sometimes, silence buys time. And I needed more of it. He avoided children's sections in stores. Avoided conversations about our future kids. When I asked if he wanted children, he said, one day, maybe. But it wasn't hesitation. It was calculation. A man already playing pretend in a second life. One day I found a drawing under his office printer. A crayon sketch with the name Zachary scribbled in the corner. I held it in my hands, breath caught. He said it was from a coworker's kid. But it was folded, worn. Carried like a secret. Held like guilt. His calendar had block time labeled off-grid. No explanation. No location. Just blackout squares once a month. I matched the dates with the Cash App transfers. Every 15th. Just like clockwork. Just like child support. He began calling me Liv less often. Used my full name when he was distant. Olivia, can you sign this? Olivia, did you pay the florist? Affection slipped into formality. He was preparing to leave. Without moving out. I started locking my own files. Not out of paranoia, out of necessity. Because trust shouldn't require surveillance, but betrayal always leaves crumbs. And I was gathering mine. Quietly. Carefully. He once said, you're too intuitive for your own peace. I smiled. Because peace wasn't my priority anymore. Proof was. And sometimes, love sounds like a lullaby until it echoes like a warning. And I was finally listening. I found the photo on a parent's phone at my bridal shower. A baby in white onesie, curls in his hair, cradled by Aaron. Not our child. He smiled like he belonged there. Not just a father. A father with a history I didn't see. And I swallowed. Something I'd kept calm. I asked my sister about it later. She said the mom is Brianna. Brianna, the white dress guest. The woman I assumed was a willing accomplice in his past. Instead, she was the mother. And I, standing in my bridal gown, knew I was the punchline. That night, he came home and kissed my cheek. His mouth tasted like wedding cake. I looked past his eyes and saw guilt. Not apology. Just hesitation. He held his breath as if expecting me to collapse. I didn't. I took a deep breath. Who is he? I didn't yell. Not yet. I held the silence like a weight. So he would feel how meaningful empty space could be. He stuttered. My son. His voice quiet, brittle. It wasn't a confession, it was a deadline. He didn't offer clarity. He offered mine. And I took it at the rehearsal. Dinner, I excused myself. Slipped into the powder room and closed the door. I didn't cry, not then. I aligned the dress on the hanger. Steam smoothed the wrinkles. I practiced my next move in the mirror. I gave no tears, just planning. The next morning, I found a text on his phone. Can you bring Zachary to the wedding? My hand hovered. I didn't delete it. I took a screenshot. Because proof weighed more than words. In the bridal suite, I looked at my reflection, white dress, bouquet in hand. Every detail screamed celebration. But I felt the echo of someone else's celebration behind me. I smoked out his lies, one by one, image by image. And I refused to be erased. Walking down the aisle, my chest was tight but steady. I saw him, saw the guests. I saw her, Brianna, standing strong by her son. The child was real, undeniable. The betrayal was vivid in his shoulders. And I smiled. I spoke into the mic. My vows are delayed. Orderly hush. He looked at me. Confusion, then panic. I waited. Lights drifted. Guests leaned forward. I began. Aaron, I stand here today not only as your future wife, but as a woman who honors truth. And truth deserves a place in every vow. I paused. Pulled a folded paper from my bouquet wrap. Unfolded it. Revealed the DNA test. There was a gasp. A small cry. A hush deeper than any melody could hold. He reached but didn't. She held her son. And I kept the test visible in the air. I continued. This isn't about judgment. It's about clarity. Because he is your son. And you owe him more than hidden truths. He deserves truth. My voice didn't crack. But the world split in two. I handed the envelope to her. No whisper. No apology. Just paper. And a presence he couldn't override. She accepted it with dignity. We both held it, two mothers. One betrayed. I placed the bouquet down. Walked away from the altar. Walked past him. Walked past power. Walked toward myself. Because love doesn't need to destroy truth. And vows don't need silence to survive. And as I exited the hall, no cheering. Not yet. Just the quiet thud of heels on marble. Because some exits should be heard, even if no one claps. Because I wasn't disappearing. I was delivering justice. I didn't cry until I got home. Not during the walkout. Not when I handed her the envelope. Not when my mother called my name down the corridor. Only when I took off the dress. And realized I'd never wear white again for anyone but myself. The apartment was quiet. My phone buzzed constantly, calls, messages, chaos. I turned it over, screen down. Because grief doesn't need noise. It needs stillness. I sat on the floor in my slip. Staring at the empty vase where the bouquet had rested. The mirror across the room still reflected the version of me he chose. Polished. Planned. Curated to fit beside him. But beneath the surface was someone cracked, not from weakness, but from too many months of pretending not to see. I read the guest list one last time. All the names who came for celebration, but witnessed exposure. I wondered who pitied me, who applauded me, and who silently thanked me for doing what they couldn't. It didn't matter. Because I wasn't doing it for them. That night I slept in the guest room. Too many ghosts in the master bedroom. I left the lights off, but kept the window cracked. Let the cold remind me I was alive. That I had left by choice, and not as someone discarded. I woke to silence. Not the peaceful kind. The aching kind that fills your lungs with cement. I made tea. Watched it steep. Held the mug and did nothing. Because sometimes surviving is simply staying upright. My mother came by. She didn't ask questions. She brought soup and folded blankets. She didn't need to understand every step, only that I had walked out whole. She held my hand like I was 5 again. And I let her. I opened a blank notebook. Wrote the words, he had a child. He hid it. I read it over 10 times. Let the ink confirm the truth I'd lived. Because sometimes seeing it written makes it easier to survive. Days passed slowly. I ate out of obligation. Laughed once when a commercial played too loud. Cried only when I found a receipt for the cake tasting, my name signed next to his. One signature too loyal. One too false. People reached out. Some apologized for not warning me. Some admitted they always felt something was off. Some told me I was brave. I didn't feel brave. I felt burned. Like I had stepped into a fire I prepared but still underestimated. I unpacked wedding gifts. Returned the ones with his name on the tag. Kept the ones addressed to me alone. Because even Grief comes with choices. And I was choosing not to disappear. Not now. Not ever. One night I opened the drawer he always kept locked. Inside were letters from her. Photos. Drawings by Zachary. The past, neatly organized, waiting for its turn to surface. He hadn't thrown it away. He'd only hidden it from me. That broke me more than the affair. Not the existence of the child, but the way he planned to keep two lives parallel, expecting neither to collide. I was never going to be his only truth. Just his most convenient one. So I gathered the evidence. Boxed it. Labeled it, hers, not mine. Delivered it without a note. Because closure doesn't need an argument. It needs distance. And I was already far out. I changed the locks. Changed my hair. Changed the playlist that once played during dinners. Each change was a brick, building the new foundation. Not for revenge. But for resurrection. It started with the envelope sitting on my dining table. I opened it again, unfolded the DNA result. Did it before breakfast, like reading a morning report. 99.98% match. Not emotion. Fact. Irrevocable. Next, I called a lawyer. Not in anger. In clarity. Said, I need guidance on parental rights. She asked if I had proof. I slid the folder across the polished desk. She nodded slowly. We subpoenaed school records. Official documents showing a child named Zachary with Aaron listed as father. The enrollment form, signed in ink, black on white. It wasn't rumor. It was bureaucracy. And silence doesn't hold up in a registrar's office. Then came official communication, a certified letter to Aaron. Subject, regarding child acknowledgement and potential custody. No threats. No drama. Just legal steps. Ordered. Triggering federal timelines. Simultaneously, I reached out to Brianna. Politely. Offered to discuss the future, for the child. Not for revenge. But for responsibility. I kept it measured when he received both certified letters. He called her. But also me. One voice sounded anxious. One sounded composed. Mine navigated next steps better than his panic navigated reality. We formed a temporary agreement. Shared custody for Zachary. Test results, legal documents, and admissions all in file. The paperwork, clean. But it shifted everything. He never saw the meeting coming. Then I drafted a public announcement. Not social media. A letter to the school board, discreet, requesting parent contact updates. No headlines. Just records. Because presence is acknowledgement. Within weeks, I appeared on documents. Teacher introductions. Emergency contact lines. Official titles next to their names, mother. Father. Not fiancé. The change was quiet. And loud. His family saw it. Teachers saw it. The school newsletter announced Hartman in connected brackets. His new fiancé had to explain. But I didn't explain. I demonstrated. I closed our joint account. Opened a new one for my daughter and me. Updated beneficiary forms. Wrote a will that placed both of us first. Line by line. Clause by clause. He asked if I wanted confrontation. I said no. I wanted consistency. And I wanted clarity. But most of all, I wanted to exist. Within our daughter's life. Not as a bystander. Then came the school's parent orientation. We walked in separately. His fiancée at his side, her son's hand in hers. I walked in with my daughter. And the envelope printed in legal files. That's when he realized the wedding wasn't his only stage. And I owned the sequel. With documentation complete, I suppressed photos of her white dress. But I kept the DNA test framed in my office. Not for display. For remembrance. A reminder that clarity matters more than ceremony. The school auction came first. I donated a full pediatric checkup package. Silent auction lot number 17. Under it, my name, Dr. Olivia Hartman. Not Miles. Not +1. Just me, no introduction needed. She saw it. Brianna. Her hand tightened. On Zachary's shoulder. She didn't approach. She didn't smile. She knew now, my silence was not absence. It was strategy. He approached me by the refreshment table. Said, "You're making this difficult." I said, "No. I'm making it legal." He looked around, hoping no one heard. But I wasn't raising my voice. I never needed to. Because paper carries louder. I printed the financial ledger. Highlighted every tuition deposit. Every medical bill I paid without asking. Then placed it in a sealed envelope. Delivered to his lawyer. With the note, responsibility is not optional. He signed quietly. Then came the press release from my firm. We opened a wellness wing, pediatric and legal guidance for mothers in custody disputes. I posed for the photo alone. Not out of pride. Out of precision. He wasn't mentioned. He wasn't needed. Brianna sent a message. 2 lines, "You were right. Thank you." I didn't reply. Because vindication doesn't need witnesses. Only recognition. She had worn white. But I wore proof. At the next parent-teacher night, my daughter's drawing was on the wall. She wrote, "My mommy tells the truth even when it's quiet." And I stood taller than any statement ever made in court. Aaron walked in 10 minutes late. No one clapped. No one waited. He tried to introduce his fiancé. I extended a hand. Not to welcome, to confirm presence. She avoided eye contact. As if touching me would pass the knowledge she didn't want. But it already had. He stopped sending emails. Started using attorneys again. Because when words lose power, people hire intermediaries. He lost the right to speak directly when he forfeited the truth. When he hit a child, unexpected applause. I updated my records at the hospital. Changed emergency contacts. Updated next of kin forms. Wrote my name beside my daughter's in every chart. Because while they focused on weddings, I focused on legacy. Line by line, then came the gala. Same hospital where we met. Same stage. Only this time, I stood alone, honored for community work. The lights were brighter now. But I wasn't hiding. I was reclaiming. As I stood at the podium, I glanced once toward the back. He was there. So was she. But only I stood at the mic. Only I had something to say. And I didn't even say his name. I thanked the women who teach through silence. The mothers who fight with paper, not volume. The daughters who draw what we can't say. And the truth, which always waits. Even when people try to bury it in vows. As I walked off stage, someone handed me a glass of champagne. I raised it alone. Not for celebration, for survival. Because revenge isn't loud. It's clean. Legal. Documented. I moved into a new apartment overlooking the lake. No echoes of arguments. No rooms filled with hidden truths. Just space that breathed when I did. I chose pale blue walls. Not for peace, for my daughter had her own corner. A bookshelf. A painting of stars, and a drawing framed, the one from her school wall. My mommy tells the truth. It hung next to the front door, so she'd always walk out with clarity. I changed my name on every document. Hartman, again. The woman who never needed his last name to be enough. The woman who handed envelopes instead of ultimatums. Who raised her voice only when necessary. And even then, only in paperwork. Work, I became Dr. H again. Not Aaron's fiancé. Not a woman behind a man. Patients came in asking for me. Not because of what I'd been through, but because of who I'd become. Reliable. Present. Real. I donated my wedding dress. Not out of bitterness, out of completion. Some women burn theirs. I released mine into the world. Let someone else wear white without hidden bruises beneath it. Brianna sent a Christmas card. A photo of Zachary smiling. No mention of Aaron. Just, thank you. He knows the truth now. It sat on my mantle for a month. Then in a box marked, closed. Not forgotten. Just finished. I no longer attended mutual events. I didn't need to be seen to feel seen. When people spoke his name, I didn't flinch. I didn't correct. I simply continued. Like wind over water. Aaron texted once. Just once. Was it all revenge? I replied, no. It was recovery. Then blocked the number. Because closure isn't owed, it's chosen. I started journaling again. Not about pain. About presence. Wrote about tea in the mornings, my daughter's laughter, and how healing sounds nothing like noise. It sounds like breathing without bracing. I built a foundation in my name. Helped women draft their own clauses. Taught them how to read every contract, especially the emotional ones. We named it Clause 7. In honor of everything they never see coming. Until it's too late. And they're ready. I learned to smile again. Not the kind I wore at the altar. But the real kind. The kind that doesn't need an audience. The kind that's earned. Like silence after a storm. Like sunrise on terms you wrote. My daughter grew. She asked less about weddings, and more about strength. She never saw me scream. But she saw me stay. Then leave. Then rise. Sometimes people still ask, how did you not lose it? And I tell them, I did. But I lost the version of me that waited for the lie to confess itself. And I never missed her. Point. One day, I passed him at the grocery store. He looked tired. Older. He nodded. I didn't. Because my revenge was already over. And I was already free. I left the store with milk, bread, and peace. Nothing heavy. Nothing hidden. Just the simple weight of living fully. Legally. Completely mine.